Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head up to Norway, and it feels like it's been a little while since my last Norwegian review, but in reality it's only been a couple of weeks. But still, I don't get to review the Norwegian beers as often as I would like. So yeah, for this one we have a beer that I think will be very interesting. It's a collaboration beer, and in this case the home brewery has never featured on the channel before. I've heard very good things about them though, and I'm really curious to see how the beer turns out. But on the other hand, the away brewery has featured on the channel a good number of times before. I've had really nice beers from them over the years, and they are probably one of the best known Norwegian craft breweries these days worldwide. So this should make for an interesting review, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So for this one then, we are going to go to Trondheim, and we're having a look at my first beer from Monkey Brew. The beer itself is called Save the Turtles. It comes in at 10% ABV, and it's a New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, triple IPA, and it's brewed in collaboration with Lervig Aktiebryggeri, who come from Stavanger, a little bit to the south of Trondheim. So yeah, this beer was released here in Sweden as part of the Tillfälliga temporary sortiment through Systembolaget. I think I can't remember the exact date, but it was early March 2021 that this beer was released. And yeah, I got this one because I enjoy reviewing Norwegian beers. The quality up there always seems to be very, very good. And it was another brewery that I didn't recognise, and I thought, well, why not? And it was only when I actually went and bought the beer that I found out that it was a collaboration with Lervig, so that was a little bit of a nice surprise as well. But definitely cool to introduce Monkey Brew for you here on the channel, and nice to have Lervig on once again. And yeah, fingers crossed we can get some more different Norwegian breweries on the channel over the next little while. For the most part, here in Sweden, we really get Amundsen and Lervig, who do some awesome beers. I've seen Untappd before. We've had some Alstman beers, Alstman are also from Trondheim, if I remember rightly. We've had Hufjell, the Seven Mountain Brewery, Servicium, Handbryggeriet. There's a couple of breweries out there, but you know, in reality, we only get a few select Norwegian breweries, so hopefully that starts to change over the next little while. But yeah, definitely nice to feature Monkey Brew for the first time and to have Lervig on again, like I said, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer. Very curious to see how it turns out. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. As always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Monkey Brew. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers, as I mentioned, and there's also a link down there to my other reviews that I've done already from Lervig Aktiebryggeri, and again we'll see about adding to that list in the future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Norwegian beers that I reviewed for you. This beer will appear in that list, and hopefully, as I said earlier, we can add some more to that list in the fairly near future. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about the breweries then, and we'll start off with Monkey Brew since they are the home brewery in this case. So Monkey Brew, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Trondheim, and the company was founded back in 2014, and the three men behind it are Bjarke Vang, Paul Rolfsen, and Jörg Solheim. But the three were home brewers, and they brewed in an attic apartment in Trondheim for about 4 years before winning several awards at the National Homebrewing Championships in Oslo back in 2013. And it was this that gave them the chance to brew their Doppelbock at Nygna in Grimstad, and it proved to be the spark that made them turn professional. They were really inspired by going to Nygna and having this chance to brew a beer on the big scale. But the following year in 2014, they opened Habitat in the centre of Trondheim, which became a hit amongst the locals very quickly, and it was known for its craft beer and its pizza. But they initially brewed their beers in the basement of this place, but they later moved their brewing to a new facility and bigger facility in Nyhavna, which is kind of to the northeast of the city centre. But over the years they've continually expanded the brewery. I think they bought brewing equipment from another brewery that went defunct in about 2018 or so. And they've also started doing some barrel aging and things like that as well. But as of March 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 125 different kind of beers, and there seems to be a good little bit of variety in there as well. A lot of hazy New Englands, some other types of IPA as well, and a few stouts and things like that. I've seen a few, I think there's a couple of lagers in there too, come to think of it. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Monkey Brew for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. But yeah, another story of a brewery that seems to have started out as home brewers, then they've had a little kind of brew pub sort of thing, and now they've got a larger commercial brewery. So yeah, pretty cool story, and quite a common one these days actually. But yeah, let's move on to our second part of the brewery histories then, Lervig Aktiebryggeri. So as I mentioned to you earlier, Lervig Aktiebryggeri are based in Stavanger, which is in southwestern Norway, a little bit to the south of Trondheim, and the company was founded back in 2003 after the Toll brewery was sold to Carlsberg and subsequently production moved to Oslo. But for a while the Lervig beers were produced at Brewery away in the north in Tromsø, but production was moved to Hillevåg in Stavanger back in 2005. But the head brewer of Lervig is Mike Murphy, and he's been with the company since 2010. But prior to this, the brewery were making a lot of different light lager beers, but when Mike came in, he moved them towards making the more American style beers, and it's within this kind of little niche that they've really started to make their name. But Mike apparently played quite an important role in the Danish craft beer revolution, and he collaborated with several well-known brewers such as Mikael and Jeppe Bjergso, Sean Hill of Hill Farmstead over in the States, and also Andreas Kiesmeyer as well. But he also worked for a period of time at Birra del Borgo down in Italy, and he now owns 5% of Lervig Aktiebryggeri, so he's committed there for the foreseeable future. But the CEO of the company is Anders Kleistrup, and the main owner of the company was originally Christopher Stensrud, who owned 67% of the shares. But in 2018, Orkita Capital, who also own part of Mikkeller, bought 50% of the company, and they've been helping them to expand quite dramatically. But they're apparently hoping to open up a new facility called Ulhalena in Stavanger at some point fairly soon, probably once the whole COVID-19 thing buggers off. But they currently export around 1/3 of all their beer, and in total the brewery now exports around 17% of all the exported beer from Norway. I think that figure was from 2019, so I need to check if that's still up to date. But as of March 2021, when I'm reviewing this beer for you, Lervig Aktiebryggeri have produced around 210 different kinds of beer, and I would say that they're probably best known for their kind of New England hazy IPAs, and they've also been doing some really interesting pastry stouts in recent times. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Lervig Aktiebryggeri for the moment. Again, if you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all those different beers that they've done. So yeah, that concludes your history section of the video. We can get on into tasting the beer now. So pardon me, yeah, I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork before we open this one up. So as you can see, the artwork on this is pretty nice. There you can see the Monkey Brew symbol taking centre stage, and you can see the Lervig Aktiebryggeri star down there as well. But yeah, save the turtles, 10% New England hazy triple IPA. And it says on the back here, the Lervig guys just told us that Charles Darwin ate tortoises when sailing back from the Galapagos. Henceforth, we are now all creationists. We will be rebranding from Monkey Brew to Man Brew, and our flagship beer will now be called Noah IPA. Don't drink triple IPA with plastic straws. So yeah, I like that. It's always nice to have a little bit of a kind of random blurb on the beer. But yeah, this one is a 440ml can. I think I paid roughly about 70 Swedish kroners for this. Could have even been a little bit more than that, come to think of it, because it is a 10% IPA, but let's say 70. I should have checked the price before I started filming, but yeah, 70 Swedish kroners, so about €7, about £6.25, £6.50 sterling, and maybe about $8 American for the can. But you know, it's a Norwegian beer. The labour costs in Norway are very, very high. The currency is very strong, so you know, if you want to drink Norwegian beer, you are going to have to pay a little bit more for it. The same with Danish beer. Sweden's actually fairly cheap for craft beer though, because we've got Systembolaget, but Norway has Vinmonopolet, who I don't know, relative to the wages and stuff, how how expensive the beers are. But I don't think it would be too bad, to be honest with you, because they earn a ridiculous amount up there. I need to go to Norway and do some work, I think. But yeah, as you can see, a nice black top can there, and yeah, it looks pretty nice actually. So yeah, without further ado then, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting. So to tell you a little bit about the beer, it's hopped with Galaxy and Mosaic, and it's got a malt base of Norwegian Bonsack pale malt, so quite cool that there's a Norwegian malt producer. It's got Golden Promise, oats, wheat, and a little bit of lactose in it. So yeah, Galaxy and Mosaic we know quite well. So Galaxy, of course, an Australian hop coming in at 14% or so alpha acid, and it usually gives you a big bit of passion fruit as well as some kind of, you know, lighter things. Usually a bit of pineapple from what I remember. And Mosaic, as we know, is an American hop, again about 14% alpha acid, and it tends to give you you know, a lot of kind of juicy, tangerine sort of things. So yeah, I think it should make for a really interesting beer, this one. Quite a classic combination, Galaxy and Mosaic, although I've not had it in quite a wee while actually. But yeah, it should be nice, and I'm curious to see what this Norwegian malt has in store for us as well. So let me just realign that so that my OCD is happy, and yeah, there we are. So as you can see, and as you would expect, this beer has poured a lovely, shine a light through it, I would say that this is a very kind of rich, very, very rich yellow, this one. So it looks a little bit like a mixed kind of tropical fruit juice, mango and maybe pineapple or something like that. It does look kind of like that. For me, I always like comparing the New England IPAs to different fruit juices, because that's really just what their appearance reminds me of. But you can see there, when this beer poured, it poured with about 1/3 of a frothy white head there. That's fading away to just be a little bit of a thin foamy layer, but it is leaving a nice kind of ring around the edge of the glass there. So yeah, it looks pretty good. Remember, the colour of these beers is dependent on a couple of things. One, the type of malts that you use. Two, the length of your wort boil. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, thus you get a darker colour of beer, but that is dependent on the exact type of malts that you use in the first place. Adjuncts and barrel aging and stuff can also have an effect, but they are not factors at play in this particular beer. When it comes to the level of haziness, which in this case, this one does have a little bit of a soupy, kind of gloopy kind of thing going on, but it's definitely not the thickest of triple IPAs that I've come across in the New England category. But when it comes to the level of haziness that you get in these beers, that depends on the oat and the wheat content, and the yeast, of course, can play a little bit of a role in that as well. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty hazy, but as I say, not the soupiest and gloopiest of New England triples that I've come across before. But in terms of its appearance, it certainly looks the part. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, and just a few little ones going up towards the surface there. But I mean, it looks like a very, very nice beer, and if I stick my fingers behind the glass, you can get an idea of the level of haze with this one. But yeah, I have to say, I'm very, very curious to see what this beer has in store for us. So yeah, let's take a look at the aroma first off then and see how we get on. This should be pretty nice. I got a few whiffs of it when we opened it up, so yeah. Ooh, that does smell pretty nice. Yeah, that's going to be an absolute monster when we go to drink it. Absolutely. So yeah, as I've said in previous New England reviews, for me, there's a few directions you can take the there's a few different directions you can take New England IPAs, and they can be a little bit more yeasty and farmhousey. They can be a bit kind of rye leaning and grainy, wheaty and bitey, oaty and creamy, barley malt leaning and sort of bready, and sometimes they can be a little bit sweet, but quite often they can be a little bit brown sugary and sweet, I should say. But quite often you'll find, you know, a few of those different characteristics coming out in it, and this one is really quite interesting actually, I have to say. There are definitely a few things going on in this one. Nearly sniffed a little bit of that up there. Need to be careful. Yeah. So with this beer, the first thing I'm noticing about it is that it's got a nice kind of wheaty bitiness to it. I definitely get a good bit of a wheaty character at the back of the nose in this one. You can smell a really thick oaty quality to it though, and it's also quite creamy, so I think the yeast is probably playing a big role in there. So yeah, for me, good bit of wheaty bite, big thick oaty characters out of this one. I don't really get any rye sort of graininess There's a little bit of brown sugar in this one, but not a lot. But you can smell, I think probably the reason this one's coming across as really oaty and thick is because of the lactose in there. Lactose can have quite a dramatic effect on the mouthfeel of these beers. But it really, you can just smell that thickness in the aroma with this one. It smells ridiculously creamy. So yeah, there is a little bit of a white bready, pale malty sort of thing underneath. Definitely some smooth oaty characters as well. And you can smell a little bit of that kind of lactosey quality. It's almost like a little bit vanilla-like and just kind of sweetening up the oats, as I said. But you've got a lovely kind of Werther's Original kind of butter candy sort of thing there in the middle of the nose as well. And usually that, you know, that kind of couples with the alcohol aromas in the beer. But it's got a little bit of Maris Otter, I think it was, or was it Golden Promise? I think it was Golden Promise that was in this one, wasn't it? I should remember that, but yeah, it had a little bit of Golden Promise in it, I think, and that's probably also kind of contributing to that a little bit. Golden Promise, I've always found, gives you a little bit of a kind of Werther's Original butter candy type quality, so there's definitely a little bit of that in this beer. And when it's a 10%er as well, you would expect that a little bit. You know, you do get a lot of the alcohol tends to come out as a sort of brown sugary flavour and aroma, so I'm not surprised I'm picking that up. But yeah, that for me is the malty side of this beer. Lots of creamy oats in there, good little bit of lactose, a little touch of vanilla, of course, some Werther's Original sort of butter candy elements, and then a little bit of a kind of wheaty, bitey element to it. But on the hoppy side of things, the hops are kind of what you would expect. There's a little touch of earthiness in this one, which I'm guessing will be from the Mosaic. I've always found that Mosaic has a little touch of earthiness to it, but there's a big green floral component there, and when both of the hops that are in this one are, you know, about 14% alpha acid, that's to be expected. It's got a lovely kind of brightness. It's got a lovely kind of brightness on the floral side of things. There's a little bit of a kind of zesty, grassy quality to it as well, but for me the green component is overwhelmingly floral, I would say. It's not the spiciest of things, and that does make me wonder if the majority of the hops in this beer are late addition hops. Remember, when you're adding the hops into your beer, if you add them on early on in the wort boil, that's when you get most bitterness out of them, but you've got a progressive trade-off over the course of your wort boil where you get less bitterness, and that is, you know, that goes in favour of flavour and aroma. So probably this beer is relying quite heavily on late addition hops as well as dry hopping after the wort boil. So yeah, the green component for me is not too strong in this, but it does give you a nice bright floral character. So yeah, on the fruity side of things, it is quite, you know, it's kind of what you would expect if you know the two hops that are in this beer, and I'm quite familiar with them. So yeah, for me, you can smell, if you take the aroma in a little bit more deeply, you do get a good little bit of that slightly stronger passion fruit out of the beer. I am getting a wee bit of a mango quality as well, and then further towards the front of the nose, you can really smell that more oily tangerine element from the Mosaic in this one, but you can smell a bit of pineapple mixing in with that too. So I think the Galaxy's showing a little bit of its kind of complexities here, whereas the Mosaic is showing a little bit more of a kind of straight shooting character. But these two hops work together very, very well. As I said, I've got quite a bit of experience of these two working together in the past. So yeah, I think it will be quite nice. So yeah, tangerine oranges, bit of pineapple, good bit of mango for me, and then a little bit more of a kind of pungent passion fruit. I think that sums up the fruity side of things. But this beer smells like it's going to be a little bit of a sipper. I think this is going to be a bit of a monster. So yeah, let's have a little look at this one then. Let's go for it with the tasting. So this one is the Save the Turtles 10% New England Hazy, whatever you want to call it, Triple IPA from Monkey Brew in Trondheim in collaboration with Lervig Aktiebryggeri from Stavanger, a little bit to the south. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, that is very, very nice, I have to say. Yeah, I think the yeast in this one, I'm going to say, I think this is a London fog yeast in this, because it's given me just one or two little characteristics that I've had in other beers. Actually, some of the sort of yeasty notes you get out of this one remind me of a few of the Gamma Brewing Company beers. So if it's Gamma, it'll be WLP 66. That'll be the one that's in here, that London fog yeast. It does taste as if that's what's in it. It's just that yeast always just gives you a little bit of a kind of woody character. You just get a little bit of a woody, slightly farmhousey kind of thing out of it, and I'm just getting a little bit of that underpinning the beer in this one. So yeah, WLP66 I'm pretty sure is the yeast in this one, just going from the flavour. I'd love if someone from Monkey Brew watches this, do let me know what yeast you use in this, because it comes across as really familiar. But I'm going to say straight away, that is a very, very nice beer. So yeah, definitely try this one if you get the chance. I've not had a triple IPA in quite a wee while, come to think of it. So yeah, this one is a little bit of a treat. This is one to end the night with, basically. But yeah, it is very, very nicely executed. So yeah, where do we start with this one then? I like this for sure. Fix my OCD again. There we go. Shouldn't pick up the can. That's terrible. But yeah. So let's just do it in the order that we always do. So in the middle third of your palate then, for me, you can feel a little bit of that sort of very slightly woody, kind of almost crackery undertone that you get from what I suspect is WLP66 London Fog yeast. You can feel that forming the backbone of this beer. So yeah, a little bit of a kind of slightly woody element to it, a little bit of a kind of crackery thing sitting on top of it, and then yeah, you get the other things that you would expect. But yeah, on top of that, you get more of a sort of white bready kind of quality out of this one, and I think that works really, really nicely. It does taste as if it's got a good little bit of complexity to it, this beer as well, which I really, really like. But on top of that, you can feel that big, thick, oaty layer. It's almost like the oats. The oats kind of go down like the middle line of your tongue. So in that middle third of your palate, you can feel the oats just go right down the centre line. They don't quite reach the very edge of your palate on the sides. But yeah, big, thick, sort of oaty quality there. As you progress further into the aftertaste, you can feel them sort of sweetening up a little bit, which is kind of interesting, and you can feel that they become just very, very slightly almost powdery, if you like. So it's interesting. This is a very layered beer for me. You've got the woody kind of elements and the crackery sort of things. You've got that soft, white bready kind of quality coming out of the beer, which I'm guessing is from the Golden Promise. And then you've just got, on top of it, you've got that kind of nice oaty layer as well. But on top of the oaty layer, in the very centre of your palate, that's where that Werther's Original kind of butter candy, brown sugary sort of thing is kind of sitting there. So in the very centre of your palate, you might get a little bit of a straight up caramel, but then kind of sitting underneath that and spreading out a bit is that more Werther's Original butter candy sort of thing. And you may well detect just a little bit of biscuit as you push out towards the kind of extremities of that middle third of your palate. So yeah, the lactose for me doesn't come out too much in the flavour. I've always found that lactose gives a very slightly vanilla-y sort of thing, but maybe that's part of the reason why the oats feel nice and thick. That would make sense. Lactose, I think on its own, doesn't taste particularly much, but in fairness, on that front half of the front third of the middle third of your palate, sorry, as you progress further into the aftertaste, you can feel just a little bit. There is almost like a very slight vanilla type quality comes out of it. So yeah, I mean, I think it is there, and it's playing a slight role, but not too much. The lactose in this one is not overly noticeable. Quite a few breweries will overuse lactose, actually. I know my friend Thomas Hundam at Thomas Open down in the Netherlands, he doesn't like it when they use too much lactose, but I think that the lactose in this one is actually really tastefully done, if that makes sense. It comes across as just a little bit of a subtlety, so it is just, I think, very slightly thickening up this beer, if that makes sense. So yeah, the middle third of your palate in this one goes together really quite nicely, in my opinion. So yeah, let's look at the rest of the beer then. So on that border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you do get a very nice kind of slightly thicker type quality there, a little bit of a thicker, more doughy kind of thing, and you get a little bit of a more grainy, bread crusty quality on that border region too. But let's just focus on the back third of the palate too. So yeah, on the back third of your palate, you do get a little bit more of a sort of wheaty, bitiness coming out of the beer. The wheaty bitiness in this beer is not overly prominent, I would say, but it just gives you a little bit of contrast on the back third of your palate. So it's at the very back of the tongue that you get that little bit of wheaty bitiness there, and it kind of smoothens out as you move further forward, but you can feel the sort of yeasty elements, those sort of thicker or wispier, whatever you want to say, yeasty elements just kind of sitting on top of that. So the beer feels a little bit almost kind of thicker, if you like, on that back third of your palate, and then as you move further forward, I don't know if thick is necessarily the right word, come to think of it. I've been using that terminology a lot in the last videos, but it's almost like a kind of airy, wispy sort of thing on that back third of your palate. But as you move further forward, you can feel that gradually just kind of condenses a little bit, and then as you reach the border region, it drops away considerably and quite suddenly, and then you've got a nice dense, more malty layer, if you like, on that middle third of your tongue, but you've got all those other layers that we talked about a little minute ago. But yeah, the malty, yeasty side of things goes together very nicely in this beer, but it's most definitely a sipper, this one, at 10%. It will take you a little bit of time to get through this, but that's to take nothing away from the flavour of the beer. It's very nicely executed, actually. So yeah, thumbs up to both Monkey Brew and Lervig Aktiebryggeri on that side of things. But on the hoppy side of the beer then, back corners of the palate, there is a little touch of earthiness out of this one. I suspect that will be the mosaic, as I mentioned in the aroma section. But as you move further forward, it does develop a little bit of a herbal quality, but then progressively as you move towards the front corners of your tongue, it becomes more kind of floral and aromatic, and it's not overly spicy, and that does make me think that the majority of the hops in this beer are late addition. Doesn't really strike me as very bitter at all, this one, to be honest with you. Usually with triple IPAs, you would expect a bitterness of about 50 IBUs. Usually a normal IPA is about 30, a normal New England is about 30, the doubles tend to be 40, and then the triples I think need to be 50. I think they've got to have a little bit of bite to them. But yeah, there's not a lot of bitterness to this beer, in my opinion at least. But then again, what I would always add to that is that IBU counts are my weakest point of beer reviewing by quite a distance, I would say. But yeah, we'll come back to the mouthfeel in a minute. But yeah, you do get a little bit of a floral character just building up as you move progressively further forward on the sides of your tongue, and it does have just a little touch of spice on the front corners of the palate. But then round the very front curve of the tongue, the beer's lighter and grassy. It's got a little bit of a kind of grassy zestiness going on as well, which I think suits it quite nicely. So yeah, that covers the green side of things. Let's focus on the fruity part of the beer then. So as I always say, on that front third of your palate, you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. Now on that border region between front third and middle third of your tongue, you can feel the sort of doughy side of the beer it just sort of thickens up a little bit again, and you can feel the bread crusty elements in there. But the front third of your palate has a base, I think, of a sort of smooth oaty kind of quality in there. A little bit of the kind of crackery thing I was talking about from the yeast is coming out as well. But it does suit the beer. Actually, it does suit what the other things that are going on, but the fruity side of the beer does have a little bit of complexity to it, so let's focus on that then. So yeah, the back of that front third of your palate, you're going to get a little bit of that kind of quite intense, quite pungent passion fruity flavour, but as you move further forward from it, it actually does spread forward a fair wee bit actually, but you'll get a more lighter mango type quality out of the beer as you move towards that centre point in the front third of your tongue. So yeah, it's almost like the galaxy is sitting at the back, on the back half of that front third of your palate, and then the mosaic is sitting on the front half of that front third of your tongue. And I've always found it quite interesting how you get that. I've always found that, for me at least, the tropical fruit sits a bit further back than the more citrusy fruit, if that makes sense. So yeah, the front half of that front third of your tongue is a more oily, tangerine kind of quality, which of course corresponds to mosaic. But then it really does get a little bit more of a kind of zesty quality to it as you reach the front tip of the tongue. The front tip of the tongue really has a good bit of grassy zest, and I feel that builds the more that you drink of the beer. But I do get a little touch of pineapple coming out of this one, I think. It kind of stems from about the halfway point on that front third of your palate where the Galaxy and the Mosaic meet, actually. I think that's fair to say. But yeah, for me, bit of passion fruit, good bit of mango as well, a little bit of pineapple as well, which comes out more in the aftertaste, and then sort of a nice kind of oily but juicy tangerine orangey quality out of the beer. So yeah, the fruity side of things is kind of what you would expect if you know these hops, but I think it works out very, very well. So thumbs up to Monkey Brew for this. I think it's worked out very, very well, and to Lervig as well. Lovely beer, this one, and I look forward to trying a few more beers from Monkey Brew. I think they're going to release another one through Systembolaget fairly soon, and long may it continue. Hopefully we get more Norwegian breweries as well. But yeah, let's go on to the mouthfeel then to round off the review. Certainly curious about this. So yeah, I don't think there's much doubt about this one being full-bodied. I would say it's not the thickest beer that I've come across, but it is pretty damn thick. So I'd say it's probably in the middle region of the full-bodied end of the spectrum. The carbonation is very smooth. It does have a good degree of oiliness to it, as well as a bit of, you know, it's got a good bit level of creaminess also. So you've got a kind of sort of equilibrium, almost a little bit of a balance between the beer being very thick and creamy and being more sort of oily as well. So I would say that in terms of the New England IPA, it definitely leans towards the more oily end of the spectrum. I think that's a fair statement. So yeah, big oily, kind of almost chewy New England Triple actually. And I think chewy was actually a word that they used in their own in the Systembolaget description, if I'm remembering correctly. But in terms of hoppy bitterness, this beer isn't really that big in terms of its bitterness. I think maybe 40 IBUs is the maximum that you'd get out of this, but remember, IBU counts are my weakest point of beer reviewing by a bit of a distance, so I'll say 40 IBUs and it'll end up being like 70 or something. So yeah, take my IBU readings with a bit of a pinch of salt, absolutely. But the malty side of this beer, as I say, the malty and yeasty side of it has a really interesting thing going on. It's a little bit drier underneath. It's got a big thickness to it as well, and then it does develop a bit of sweetness the further you go into the aftertaste. And then the fruits, for me, there's a good balance between the tropical side of things and the more kind of citrusy side of it as well. It develops a little bit more of an oiliness on the fruity side of the beer as you move further into the aftertaste too. So yeah, it works really nicely, this one, I have to say. I like how it goes together. Certainly impressed with my first beer from Monkey Brew, and it certainly makes me want to try a few more of them. And you know, Lervig, I've had great beers from these guys over the years, so not surprised on that side of things. But yeah, I think we can leave it there for this one. I can feel the alcohol going to my head a little bit, so no doubt I'll start rambling soon, so we should cut it off there. But yeah, this one was the Save the Turtles, a 10% New England Triple IPA, beautifully executed from Monkey Brew and Lervig. A big, just chewy, oily New England Triple, in my opinion. My first Triple IPA in quite a while, but you know, always nice to review some Norwegian beers for you here on the channel. So I hope that you guys watching up there have enjoyed this one. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are, both from Monkey Brew and from Lervig Aktiebryggeri. If you're watching from Norway, do let me know some of the other Norwegian breweries that I should look out for, and if you are willing to be my Norwegian beer mule, where I send you some cash and you send me some Norwegian beers, that would be awesome as well. Message me through Instagram or Facebook or whatever, and we can set that up. That would be really cool. I'm still looking for a Norwegian beer mule, in fact. But yeah, always nice to review some new Norwegian beers for you. Cool to introduce Monkey Brew, and always nice to feature Lervig Aktiebryggeri as well. But until the next time, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next review. Slange, skål, cheers, and make sure you check out Save the Turtles from Monkey Brew in Trondheim in collaboration with Lervig from Stavanger, a bit to the south. Cheers. Okay.